led by Africans.
For Africans.
We value
empowerment. We support
Local
agency
and back community
driven
solutions
to Africa's
climate challenge.
Collaboration.
We work across geographies.
Openness
For creating
African-led
solutions for
A just
climate
transition.
accountability. We
Hold
ourselves.
accountable to
our mission.
partners and communities.
We serve.
Integrity.
We build trust
Through consistent
evidence-based
work
with professionalism
and clarity.
commitment,
way.
Remain
focused and resilient.
guided by
long-term vision for
Equitable.
Development.
Join us in shaping Africa's climate future. Led by Africans, for Africans.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to the celebration of the African Climate Foundation's 2026 to 2030 strategy. We are delighted to welcome participants from across the world and the wider ecosystem of grantees, partners, collaborators, and funders with whom ACF works. We are especially honored to be joined by our grantees, whose work advances the climate development agenda across Africa. We also recognize ACF's management and staff, whose dedication and hard work has assisted ACF commemorate their 5th anniversary as the continent's first African-led climate regranting institution. ACF would not be where it is today without the steadfast guidance of our board, which has shaped ACF into the institution it is. And of course, we cannot fail to mention the founding funder, the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, CIF, together with all subsequent funders who have continuously trusted and continue to support ACF. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a special occasion, both for ACF and the African continent. 25th May commemorates the founding of the African Union in 1963. In that spirit, the ACF board chair, Professor Carlos Lopez, the executive director, Salim, the head of programs, Ellen, and the chief operating officer, Mabatu, will reflect on ACF's journey from 2020 and share the roadmap to 2030. You will also hear reflections from one of our grantees, Enda Energy of Senegal, and from the founding funder, CIF. And what is a strategy celebration without a brand refresh and socialization to keep us going for the next 5 years? Kerry, the head of strategic partnerships and communications, will fill you in on all the details. Finally, a few housekeeping notes. We are providing simultaneous French interpretation for our Francophone brothers and sisters. You will find the instructions on how to use the translation services in the chat. We are also happy to take your questions and comments at the end of the session. Please put all your questions and comments in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will try and respond to them as much as possible. At this juncture, it is my pleasure to welcome the chair of the board, Professor Carlos Lopez, to give us his keynote address.
Hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be with you through this means, although I would have preferred to be with you in person. The idea of having this event is very timely, and this is an occasion for Africa Climate Foundation to present its new strategy, which is building very much on the success of the first years of this organization that is quite young, but already has produced results that are definitely making us proud and demonstrating Africa's agency. And I'm sure this session is going to be an opportunity for you to revisit some of the metrics that confirms this optimism of mine. I'm also very excited with the fact that we have now entrenched the idea that Africa has views about these issues, and it's not about importing what others are saying on climate. We have our own views, and they coincide sometimes with other very important sets of actors, but sometimes they are specific to our context. And we are very excited with the opportunity of giving this voice to the African actors, and the regranting program of Africa Climate Foundation is doing justice by making sure that the number of people involved in this type of activities is growing and will continue to grow. And we are also very much aware of the fact that we are operating under circumstances that are not the most favorable, with all the geopolitical changes that have occurred in the world of the last few years. We are definitely in a path where we have to convince a lot of people about the urgency that we all have to devote to this cause. And I'm also seeing some of the developments, particularly the Gulf energy crisis, which is a result of the war crisis, being an opportunity to convince people that we need more reliable sources of energy. Africa has them. So stranded assets become a different discussion from before, because now we are more and more looking into convincing people that the real stranded assets is the financial engineering that is associated with fossil fuel exploration, and whether it's impossible to replace that with something that is a bit more convincing in terms of our ability to meet the costs and also prepare for the future. So I'm wishing you, through this video, the best of success in this session, and looking forward to receive the feedback from my colleagues about this exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Prof, and we truly appreciate your guidance over the years. I now have the privilege of inviting the founding executive director, Salim Fakir, to give us his reflections on ACF. Welcome, Salim.
Thank you very much, Irene. And I'm in your town, Nairobi, so it's a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to share a few words. The details of the strategy will be given by my colleagues, but I wanted to reflect on the journey of the African Climate Foundation, which I think has provided a unique opportunity to be able to scale up solutions that are effectively owned and led by Africans on the continent. This is a very auspicious day for ACF, because around the same time, 5 years ago, we launched our first ACF strategy. But we knew less then, and we know a lot more now. And I think it is an opportunity for us to have reflected and to be able to announce today, at least, the position we would like to take in terms of how we're going to move forward with our partners, our funders, and the network infrastructure that we have built over so many years in a very short space of time. I want to stress that the African Climate Foundation's role in the climate foundation space, because there are many organizations that operate in Europe and elsewhere, articulate in a very autonomous way African voices and agency, and to really move forward the important aspirations of Africans as far as the climate and development nexus goes. That's really our focus. The strategy is a second iteration. As I said, we learned a lot. We made a few mistakes. We continue to experiment, and we continue to find ways, effective ways with our partners to scale up the solutions that we have, because we really believe that scaling up the solutions is very important. What I want to stress is that we don't want to treat the symptoms. We actually want to get to the root causes. And I will talk a little bit about that as we go along. It is quite a feat in 6 years to have been able to re-grant in 35 countries, to have the depth of work we have in 10, which is going to expand to 15 in the next year or two, and to be able to have the level quality of staff, we're about 70 at the moment, to be able to do the kind of work on climate and development issues, which most experts will tell you are wicked problems. They're not easy problems to solve. But we are encouraged by the level of excitement, demand, and also the energy that we are able to create with a variety of our partners who see the opportunity to exercise the kind of agency they never had before and to be able to find the solutions with the support of an indigenous, domesticated African foundation, which I think is a unique privilege to be in. Our philosophy of ACF, which I think has worked for us, is to be able to be flexible, work at speed, and to have the agility to change when things don't go right, and to be able to solve problems as we go along. In my experience as a director and with my fantastic senior management team, I know that building the kind of infrastructure that we're doing, to build the kind of organization that is needed for the continent, is about not just about announcing big ideas, but solving problems every day as we go along. It's really about finding ways to solve that. And I have to say, my experience is there is incredible energy and ingenuity on the continent. I see it with young people, I see it with older people, at all levels of the generation of people that I've been working with. I see the capacity to be able to find solutions that work on the continent and are needed on the continent. People want agency, they want voice, and they want autonomy. They do not want to be able to be copying the templates and the formulas that are not appropriate for the kind of context we are operating in. Our job as ACF is really to try to increase the flow of philanthropic finance and non-philanthropic finance in all the work we are doing. And I think we have many examples of how we have done that very well. And we want to continue that journey for the next 5 years and beyond, to be able to say that for every dollar we spend, we're able to attract 100 or 1,000 times more funding into the solutions that are led and owned by Africans. Climate can be understood as a very generic issue, but in the continent we work in, with 54, 55 countries, there are unique contexts that demand unique solutions and unique forms of navigating complexity. That is what really makes the project of ACF and our partners the most interesting piece of work to do. ACF is here to support work for the long haul. We are also encouraged and we are also interested in doing both the short-term stuff and the long-term stuff. Both are needed on the continent. It's not one or the other. We also do not just want to be advocates of ideas. We actually are very interested in finding ways to make them concrete and on the ground and in the real economy. We recognize that climate issues are not separate from many other issues. That's why we took the concept of climate and development, because we believe there are the question on the continent is really an interconnected question. You cannot do one without the other. And in fact, solving development problems is also solving climate issues, as climate issues are about solving development issues. Let me leave you with a few key main threads that have run in the course of the last 6 years, because we just celebrated our 6th year in April this year. And I want to share some really important ramifications of the work we are doing. And I want to stress it's not alone. We're doing it with a network of people. We have about 500 grantees at the moment that we have managed to develop. We have international partnerships. But let me share some of the insights. It's very important for African agency to take the time and be able to invest in an ecosystem and infrastructure that can carry forward ideas. But as I want to stress, it's not just about announcing and advocating and campaigning for ideas, but to develop the capability to actually deliver things on the ground. There's more things to deliver on the ground in the context of the African continent today than there was yesterday. And we have to look at this in a very strong and robust way. We have to recognize that the root causes of many of the challenges we face, while it might be global increase in global emissions, often the problems are economic. And we want to be able to say that if we want to solve the root causes of climate on the continent, issues like economic diversification, reduction in a country's debt, the ability to expand the fiscal space, and to build resilience in not only at the level of the state, but broader society, are crucial elements of building both the opportunities to invest in new climate solutions and to be able to mitigate climate risk. That's very important for us to bring across as a message from the African Climate Foundation. We are working in many of the countries on this idea of investment platforms. That is a way for philanthropy to be able to leverage non-philanthropic sources in order to be able to finance and increase the flow of finance for large-scale initiatives on the continent, as well as grounded, or what I would call place-based solutions that are driven by communities, small enterprises, private sector, etc., and even innovative work by labor unions and others, and farmers for that matter. We want to stress that we want to invest in locally driven solutions and innovation. And we want to take an integrated approach. We cannot do in this context, as Carlos has mentioned, with the shifting geopolitics, ignore also the need for positive diplomacy with our trade partners to be able to engage multilateral systems and to be able to draw on resources of the Friends of Africa and others that want to look at positive outcomes on the continent that matter for Africans and are driven and owned by Africans. I want to say my last few words. We want to increase resilience, not at the level only of organizations, but economies and society to withstand climate risk. We want to be able to fund work that is more anticipatory and future thinking. And we want to build the capacity and the ability for longevity in every initiative that we take, because we don't believe just in projects, we believe in systematic change, and we want to be able to draw the whole of society and economy behind some of the work we are doing. I think we are on a very exciting journey. I'm proud to say that, and with great confidence, that we have built a very strong organization. It's a resilient organization, and we have amazing partners across so many jurisdictions, and it's wonderful to see that we're all being able to work and coordinate in a way that I think will have a high impact as we go forward. Thank you very much, Irene.
Thank you, Salim, for your reflections and for steadying the ACF ship, for the past 6 years. So, who is ACF, or what is ACF? The next video is going to provide some answers to this question.
Across Africa, climate instability is already a lived reality. Droughts are shortening growing seasons. Floods are sweeping away homes and harvests. Heat is eroding health and productivity. Behind every one of these pressures are people, farmers watching crops fail, young people pulled from school as livelihoods collapse. These are not just climate impacts. They are reshaping migration, deepening food insecurity, straining public budgets, and redefining development choices, exacerbating inequalities along gender, geographic, and income lines. This is why climate and development cannot be separated. Energy access, resilience, jobs, industrialization, finance. These are part of a single transformation, And the question is no longer whether a transition will happen, it is on whose terms. The decisions made now will determine whether African economies become more climate resilient, competitive, and inclusive, or whether they remain locked into extraction, dependency, and inequality. Across the continent, governments, civil society, labor movements, researchers, and businesses are already driving that transition, building coalitions, negotiating for better terms, demanding that the benefits stay where the resources are. The African Climate Foundation exists to reinforce that momentum. As the first African-led regional climate foundation, we work alongside governments and financiers to shape enabling policy and redirect capital. We strengthen civil society, coalitions, and labor movements to amplify collective voice. We support researchers and institutions building the evidence that grounds African positions in negotiations that matter. We work with business to embed equity and local ownership into the transition, so that value is retained, not extracted. Since 2020, we have supported more than 467 investments, totaling approximately $41.3 million across 35 countries. Our presence continues to deepen, with dedicated country programs in Ethiopia, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, Tanzania, and Zambia. Local teams working alongside governments, civil society, and communities, grounded in the realities of each context. Of course, delivering systemic climate and development transformation across multiple countries requires financial resilience, capable and committed people, disciplined systems, credible governance, and a learning architecture that can navigate complexity over time. As a Pan-African platform, we have invested deliberately in the institutional foundations that underpin our delivery. Our priorities ensure that growth in scale is matched by growth in coherence, resilience, and long-term effectiveness. Our work focuses on three interconnected priorities: energy access and transitions, adaptation and resilience, and reindustrialization. These priorities depend on finance that builds capability rather than dependency, and African actors negotiating the global rules with the analytical depth and coordination they deserve. Africa's transition will be shaped from within or imposed from without, and our role is to make sure that those driving it from within have what they need. Join us in shaping Africa's climate future, led by Africans for Africans.
I hope you have all gotten a sense of who ACF is or what ACF does. But if you haven't, Ellen and Mabato are now going to delve into the refreshed strategy and give you more detail on the same. Over to you, Ellen.
So thank you, Irene, and just a huge shout out to the incredible comms team at ACF that put those wonderful videos together. So today, Mabato and I have the huge privilege of presenting ACF strategy, but we want to acknowledge at the outset that this is a strategy that has been built and informed by the whole organization, with immense support and input from our board, and one that has been shaped by 6 years of work with our partners, some of whom are here today and others that couldn't make it. And we really just want to acknowledge and appreciate that to begin with. Next slide, please. So one of the most inspiring parts of developing this strategy has been looking back on the past strategy period, the successes, the mistakes, the lessons that we've learned. And we really have an opportunity to really deeply reflect on what we've achieved over the past 6 years. And this process has forced us to do that. And it really has been inspiring to see just how much we've grown as an organization, but more importantly, the impact that we've had in just 6 years. So in 2020, we had 4 staff, all South Africans. By May 2026, and this is updated, we have 66 staff from all parts of the continent. In 2020, our work reached 1 country. By 2025, our grant making had reached 35. In 2020, we deployed just $63,000. By May 2026, and this is also updated, we have deployed almost $45 million. And in 2020, we issued 1 grant, and by May 2026, we've issued almost 500. That's incredible progress. And it's only been possible because of the remarkable people who make up the ACF, but also because of the incredible partners who have supported us on this journey. So today, we as ACF can confidently say that we've grown from proof of concept to a continental platform. Next slide, please. So what you see here is a visual representation of the 9 countries where we currently have ACF local teams on the ground, as well as the 35 countries that our grant making has reached. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to give you a quick overview of the process that we ran to inform this strategy. So this strategy was built by the ACF. We chose not to bring in external consultants because ultimately who knows ACF and its work and the work that we do with our partners better than the ACF itself. And this is something that we're really proud of today, even if we all have far more wrinkles to show for it. But this strategy was not only informed by 6 years of cumulative knowledge, but also a structured process of reflection and consultation. So first, all of our country and programmatic strategies fed into the organizational strategy. They helped to identify key priority areas and affirm that support must be context-specific and demand-driven. Second, we ran a scenario series over the course of 2025 with all of ACF plus 130 experts, and this confirmed for us that we need to focus on depth over breadth. Third, we ran a grantee survey that surfaced some really important gaps in our framing, particularly that food systems, agroecology, and youth needed to be given more weight, and that MEL should be genuinely useful to partners and not just a reporting upward function. Fourth, all of our departmental strategies from operations to HR to finance to comms, etc., helped us identify the operational gaps and priorities if we are going to achieve our objectives over the next strategy period. And finally, we engaged with our donors candidly over the process, and this really helped us to understand areas that we need to improve, in particular, communicating our work better, communicating our geographic reach better, and sharpening our theory of change. And all of this has fed into the new strategy. Next slide, please. So what's changed since our last strategy period? In some very important ways, our first strategy has stood the test of time. At the time, in 2021, we pioneered the importance of a climate and development nexus framing in climate philanthropy, and that remains as relevant today. Our vision and mission remain unchanged. Our focus on energy, our commitment to an intersectional approach to climate, to health, to gender, to youth, all of that holds. But our 2021 strategy was developed when ACF was only 1 year old. And since then, we've changed, but the world around us has changed significantly. So this strategy has been built in a new context. There are 3 key differences from the 2021 strategy. First, our scope has narrowed and deepened from broad responsiveness to 3 integrated priority areas. Importantly, this is not a retreat. Our existing programming remains, but with a much sharper focus. Second, we refined how we work. We're not just supporting good projects, but really trying to shift the conditions in which good projects can actually achieve the greatest impact. And third, green industrialization has become a core priority. It was not explicit in the last strategy, and it's central to this one. Next slide, please. So who are we as the ACF? Fundamentally, we're an African organization. We were founded on the continent by Africans, led and run by Africans, and accountable to an African board. Effectively, ACF are bridge builders. We connect and support political, technical, financial, and civil society ecosystems around shared climate and development priorities through grant making, through fiscal hosting, incubation, thought leadership, and convening. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our vision and mission have remained unchanged. Our vision is simple at its core. It's a vibrant, climate-resilient Africa where development is genuinely inclusive and growth is shared. Not growth for some, growth that is sustainable and equitable. And our mission, what we as ACF are here to do, is to support the interventions that sit at the intersection of climate and development. Not climate alone, not development alone, but that space where the 2 meet and where the most transformative change happens. That is where ACF works. So what's changed since 2021 is not what we believe, it's how we intend to deliver it over the next strategy period. Next slide, please. So this slide sets out our 5 strategic objectives that cut across the whole organization. So strengthening African-led institutions and coalitions, being more agile, trust-based, and ecosystem-focused in how we work, ensuring ACF itself is financially resilient, because we cannot do this work if we are fragile, building operational architecture that grows with our ambition, and being genuinely accountable, not just counting outputs and calling it impact. Each of this cuts across everything we do, and these are not aspirations, they're commitments that we are making to ourselves as ACF and to our partners over the next strategy period. Next slide, please. So at its core, our theory of change is this: if African actors have the enabling conditions to drive their own transitions, the policy frameworks, the financial systems, the institutional capacity, and the collective agency, then African economies can shape and benefit from the global transition on their own terms. ACF's role is to help build those conditions. And for us, success is not measured by our portfolio size or our footprint. It's measured by the growing strength, autonomy, agency, and impact of the institutions, coalitions, and communities that we support. Next slide, please. So this is where the biggest shift has been since our last strategy period. So we're organizing our work around 3 priorities, not because they're the only things that matter, but because these are the priorities that we think will most determine Africa's climate and development future. So energy access and transitions, because you simply cannot improve people's quality of life or build competitive economies without reliable, affordable, and clean power. Adaptation and resilience, because climate instability is a lived reality for hundreds of millions of people across the continent. And resilience is not a buffer, it's a foundation. And green industrialization, and this is new and deliberate, because the green transition is an industrial and developmental opportunity, and Africa must capture it. Running through all 3 are 2 cross-cutting priorities: sustainable finance and international partnerships. Sustainable finance is about supporting an architecture that builds sovereignty, not extracts it. And international partnerships is about supporting African agency and global governance, the ability to shape rules, not just abide by them. All of our work is delivered at a country or regional level, context specific, and led by local teams who deeply understand the context in which we are working. Next slide, please. So one thread runs through all of this work, and that is that our work is intersectional. Health, youth, gender, climate justice are not a side theme. They're embedded in how we think about and deliver across every priority area. A simple example: clean cooking. It's an energy intervention, yes, but the people cooking on open fires are overwhelmingly women. The health consequences, the time loss, the economic exclusion, these are not separate from the energy problem. They're very much the energy problem. So for us, health, youth, gender, climate justice are not side themes. They're embedded in everything that we do. They live inside every priority, and they inform every investment and decision that we make. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go into each of the strategic priorities in a bit more detail, but I want you to hold on to a few things as I walk through these. The first is that each area has its own vision connected to our organizational vision and mission. The second is that our role throughout is to help build the conditions in which African actors who are already doing this work can move faster and with greater impact. And the third is that while all of these are presented as individual priorities, they are deeply connected. So our first priority is energy access. We all know that more than 685 million people on this continent still don't have reliable electricity. 8 in 10 households cook on firewood or charcoal. The health consequences for women, for children are profound. And yet we as a continent hold 60% of the world's best solar resources and account for just 1% of installed solar capacity. Our work as ACF is about helping to close that gap, supporting clean energy transitions, expanding distributed renewable systems, strengthening institutional capacity for energy planning, and embedding equity and local ownership into how transitions happen. And energy is not only about the grid. Transport is one of the fastest growing sources of emissions on the continent and one of the greatest opportunity. Our work in energy explicitly includes the electrification of transport. So just to give you a concrete example of what this looks like in practice, and this is just one example. In South Africa, the energy transition has been building the policy frameworks, and this is work that we as ACF have been supporting. But what has not been well supported are the locally grounded, independent voices for the communities most affected, for the miners, municipalities, and workers whose livelihoods are tied to coal. So ACF incubated the New Economy Hub, and we provided the institutional infrastructure, but then deliberately stepped back and gave the NEH its genuine autonomy. And in 2 years, the New Economy Hub has reached nearly 5 million people and has helped to shift the public debate from technocratic transition management to questions of economic justice and community agency. Our second priority is climate adaptation and resilience. We know that climate instability is not a future scenario. It's already impacting people directly. It's reshaping livelihoods, it's affecting harvests, it's reshaping migration patterns, and it's straining public budgets. Our vision as the ACF is resilience as security and not as survival. Our work in this priority area spans locally led resilience and ecosystem restoration, access to finance for climate resilient infrastructure, stronger adaptation governance, and scaled agroecological approaches, regional cooperation across shared ecosystems, and a fairer adaptation finance architecture that has been built for durability and not short-term response. Again, to give you a concrete example of what this looks like in practice, one of the things that we know is that there is immense knowledge to build on the continent around how to build adaptation and resilience in communities and research institutes in the hands of practitioners who have been working on these problems for decades. What's not been very well supported is the infrastructure to connect that knowledge to policy and to funding decisions that can take them to scale. So to help address this gap in the food systems work, the ACF with the University of the Western Cape established the African Food System Transformation Collective. This is a network that brings together 70 of the continent's own experts alongside 10 advocacy and policy bodies with a research agenda that has been set by questions that practitioners are actually grappling with. And it's connecting innovations that are building resilience across the continent from the Sahel to the Great Lakes directly to advocacy strategies and importantly to funding decisions that can take them further. And finally, green industrialization, our third priority area. Again, we know that we have a continent with some of the world's largest reserves of cobalt and manganese, and we only process a fraction of what we extract. We export raw materials and we import higher value-added goods, and that has to change. Our vision as the ACF is from extraction to transformation, competitive, low-carbon economies that retain value locally, generate decent work at scale, and anchor resilience in a decarbonizing global system. Green industrialization is not an environmental add-on, it's an economic sovereignty question. Our work as ACF spans support for policy coherence across industrial, trade, and climate frameworks, value addition and improved environmental and social safeguards in minerals, manufacturing, and agroecology, renewable powered industrial corridors, support for the AFCFTA implementation, and connecting industrial upgrading with clean energy deployment. Again, just to give you a concrete example of what this looks like in practice, and I do want to just note that these are a few examples. As you know, we have granted up to 500 organizations, but we've been supporting a number of countries across the continent who are interested in pursuing green industrialization. So we've been providing support on green industrial policy development, but also importantly, connecting this to our international partnerships work. So bringing together countries to share learnings and fast-track progress. Next slide, please. So our two cross-cutting enablers, as we know, finance shapes everything. Africa contributes the least to global emissions and receives roughly 3% of global climate finance. And the gap is not a shortage of investable opportunities. It's a structural risk perception problem. It's fragmented pipelines. It's an architecture that wasn't designed for the continent's transformation. Our work is to help change that. So helping to mobilize domestic finance, strengthening fiscal and financial institutions, scaling blended finance, deepening regional market integration, and advocating for global financial reforms that support African priorities. Again, to give you a concrete example, we've been supporting the establishment of a number of climate finance units in ministries of finance across the continent, helping to build the institutional capacity to attract, absorb, and deploy capital effectively over the long term. And international partnerships. Our work here is about something that's equally fundamental, and that's strengthening African agency in global governance. The rules governing climate finance, trade, technology standards are written in rooms where presence, preparation, and coalition matter. And African delegations have grown, but presence is not the same as power. So we help to close that gap, supporting negotiating capacity in multilateral forums, supporting African countries to negotiate more equitable terms with bilateral partners, and advancing fairer multilateral rules that reflect Africa's climate and development realities. Over the past 6 years, we've built programs of work around Africa's key trade partners with China, India, and Europe, and we'll continue to strengthen and build out that work over the next strategy period. But again, to give you a concrete example of what this looks like, we're currently supporting a learning and knowledge exchange on electric mobility and standards between a number of African countries and one of Africa's key trade partners. But we're also complementing this with knowledge exchange between African countries we work with, so that African actors are learning and sharing with each other as much as they are learning from partners outside the continent. So these two cross-cutting priorities are not additions to the core priorities. They're what make them possible. This is a system. Progress in energy accelerates industrial competitiveness. Finance unlocks both. Agency determines the terms on which this happens, and running through all of it is the people who bear the greatest risk and must have the greatest stake in the outcome. Next slide, please. In each country and region that we work, we support a coordinated approach that brings together governments, communities, civil society, financial actors, labor, around shared priorities. We work across 3 reinforcing layers, so strengthening enabling conditions, supporting financial capacity, and connecting to capital. Each is necessary, none is sufficient alone, and it's only by working across all of these simultaneously that we, as an ecosystem, can help shift the system rather than just the symptoms. Next slide, please. So supporting this type of work is only possible if we as the ACF have the right tools. Grant making is our primary tool, almost 500 investments across 35 countries, almost 45 million deployed. Over the next strategy period, we're deepening our commitment to trust-based, multi-year funding focused on long-term institutional strengthening as much as possible. For us, how we grant is as strategic as what we fund. Fiscal hosting solves a different problem. There are many high-impact initiatives that aren't held back by lack of vision or lack of capacity. They're held back by the absence of an operational infrastructure. The JET PMU is a very good example. So South Africa had a USD 8.5 billion commitment and needed an institution to operationalize it quickly. ACF was able to provide the PMU with fiscal hosting support, and within months, the PMU had developed an implementation plan that was taken to Cabinet and presented by the President of South Africa at COP28. And incubation is different again. Sometimes our partners help to identify important gaps in the ecosystem, something that needs to exist but doesn't. We help to build that. We help the organization establish its foundations, and then we deliberately step back. The New Economy Hub is an example, and so is the African Energy Futures. So grant-making finances the actors, fiscal hosting gives actors the infrastructure to operate, incubation builds institutions that don't yet exist, and together these are designed not to grow ACF's footprint, but to strengthen the ecosystem around us. And that is what the strategy is ultimately about. Not about our growth, not about our footprint, but the growing strength, agency, and impact of the actors, institutions, and communities that are driving Africa's transition on their own terms towards a future that we as a continent define for ourselves. And that's what we as ACF are here to support. And we're just getting started. And with that, I am delighted and genuinely relieved to hand over to my wonderful colleague, Mabatsu. Mabatsu, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, a compelling strategy is only as strong as the institution built behind it. And as African Climate Foundation, we move from an understanding that ambition alone is insufficient, because to support interventions at the nexus of climate and development that can deliver long-term socioeconomic transformation and inclusive development on the African continent require institutions that can deliver consistently and responsibly. I have the pleasure of sharing with you our 7 operational priorities that will enable us to deepen institutional foundations that provide strategic assurance to sustain delivery of our strategy. And they are as follows. Next, please. Next. Next, please. Thank you. The first priority is on financial systems. This will entail a continuation of strengthening our internal finance management systems to support our strategy, because to meet its ambition, we must be able to efficiently deploy capital and effectively manage our resources. In addition, we will focus on building long-term financial resilience to match our growth ambition. Next, please. We believe that our people are our greatest asset, and through our priority on talent and culture, we'll be implementing value-centric talent management strategies and systems to ensure an attractive and supportive environment for our high-caliber talent across geographies. Next, please. Now, the priority on governance and risk affirms our stance that by strengthening governance, oversight, and risk stewardship, we will build an organizational culture that is anchored on ethics and accountability to ensure that ACF continues to operate with credibility and confidence as it grows. Next, please. The work of ACF is long-term in nature, and we need to ensure that we have financial resources to fulfill our mission. Our financial sustainability priority will shape our work of diversifying our funding base to reduce concentration risk and building structural foundations that will allow ACF to absorb shocks, sustain commitments, and grow with confidence. Next, please. Next. One of our strategic objectives is to measure what matters to achieve impact while learning and being accountable to our stakeholders. Therefore, we will be implementing adaptive systems that measure long-term contribution, drive systemic learning, and show accountability to safeguard impact integrity. Next, please. Through our voice and visibility priority, we will amplify Africa's collective agency and advance climate-aligned inclusive development by ensuring that we strategically use our voice and visibility to shape ideas and influence development outcomes. Next, please. Lastly, on operational footprint and infrastructure priority, we recognize that programmatic reach deepens across regions. Our operational infrastructure needs to evolve in parallel to support agility, speed of capital deployment, and effective regional engagement. So central to our philosophy is to ensure that we establish the right presence in the right locations to support effective delivery. This will be achieved through a learning-based expansion approach that balances sustainable growth and mission ambition. Next, please. In conclusion, we believe that strong people system, financial and governance architecture, learning and infrastructure are not enabling functions, but they are strategic assets that make system-level change possible. By investing in our organizational resilience and execution capacity, ACF ensures its country and regional platforms can translate strategy into durable institutional change, crowd in capital at scale, and sustain African-led climate and development transformation over time. Thank you very much. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Ellen and Mabatu, for that detailed presentation. You have all heard about the lessons that ACF has learned and how they have shaped the roadmap to 2030. Now, ACF, as you've heard, works with a lot of grantees, funders, and partners, and this forum they also need to have a voice. And it is at this juncture that I will want to welcome one of our grantees from Senegal, Enda Energy, represented by Emmanuel Sek, to give us his reflections. And after Emmanuel, I will also invite the Executive Director of the Children's Investment Fund Foundation in Africa, Ms. Faustina Finyami, to give her reflections. Over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Irene. I was trying to put my video, but apparently it's not working. However, I would like to thank everyone. Thank, first of all, the director of ACF, Salim, for having invited us in these great sessions where we were launching the ACF strategy. So we're really glad to join the meetings and to say that the partnership we have with ACF start since more than 3 years. And it's allowed us to join to connect policies and actions. But I'm saying policies because it is two main pillars. Is in Senegal, and that is the champions expert, which is assisting the countries in developing the long-term strategies and the JETP, I mean the Just Energy Transition Partnership, which really allow us at least to elaborate and validate a visions, which is by 2050, Senegal is a developed country thanks to inclusive, resilience and low carbon economy. And if we look at the ACF vision, we will say that it is not far from each other. But the main things here is the principle of integrity, which means that if we want to come to a paradigm shift, we need to have a critical mass of citizens that are involved in the low carbon and resilient society. So this is why when we are developing this just energy transition and the long-term strategies, the partnership with ACF allowed us at least to include or to involve more stakeholders, particularly the non-stakeholders, to at least look at or take ownership of the 4 pillars that we have. I mean, the transition related to agroecology, the transition related to energy, the transition related to industrialization, and the last one is the infrastructure. How the civil society or the non-state actors can be involved to be sure that we have an inclusion and an ownership of this process by all the stakeholders. So this is one in terms of policies, but we are also involved and we extend this partnership to what we call the climate champions. So the climate champions give the possibilities to identify partner of civil society in Africa, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Senegal to attend the conference of parties and raise the voice of communities. But the last one, the connection between the policies and action is really important. Action to make impact in the field. Because we think, and we are supporting this idea, that the ACF could be and should be a Pan-African strategic financial mechanism that will allow us to channel the finance directly to the communities. So for many assessments that we have done, it is said that only less than 10% of the climate finance reach the communities. And if with ICF, at least we come to increase this, I mean saying more than 20% reach the communities, that will be really a welcome impact and asset that the ASF will bring and start bringing within the field, because we are developing some initiative in south of Senegal on climate smart agriculture that allow the communities at least to take to be proactive actors in their development. We are not saying that these are the beneficiaries. No, they are not beneficiaries. They are actors of their changement. They are actors of their transformation. And this increase the understanding in terms of adaptation and the engagement of the communities within further resilience. So this is the partnership that we are having, and we think that we will try to extend it not only to Senegal, but also to other countries. And I'm sure that this starts in other countries, but at least to massify the process. So when we will come to this, to increase or to enhance not only the participations, but also the impacts on the ground, I think we will reach something. Because we need also, in another hand, it's what ENDA is doing, is contributing in a shifting in mindset. What we mean by shift in mindset is mean that the transformations, the change should start from the ground, from the localities, and move to the other scale. The national, the regional, and the international. If we don't change the mindset, it will be really difficult for us to transform what we would like to see in the localities or with the communities that are the most vulnerable in the climate change, and they will not take ownership. So we need more to empower them, but to reinforce what we call sometimes the locally led adaptation or the natural-based solutions, at least to be sure that the development or the adaptation is done with them, is done by them, and is done for them. So this is what we expect from the coming years with the continued partnership with ACF. And I think that, yes, if we continue like this, we will at least make impact not only in our countries, but see change, things changing at the regional level.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for taking us through the journey from the grassroots up to the national level. And now we get to hear reflections from another type of journey, from a funder type of journey, the funder that established or assisted or supported the establishment of the African Climate Foundation. Let me welcome Ms. Faustina Finyami, the Executive Director of SIF. Welcome, Faustina.
Thank you so much, Irene, and what an exciting day it is today. It is a real pleasure to be joining you all today and to have Salim and Ellen in our office today. They're in a different part of the office, but they've been with us the whole day today. Today is a moment for celebration of ACF's journey, to reflect on partnership, to look ahead with ambition and hope. 6 years ago, SIF and our partners helped create the first Pan-African climate organization focused on Africa's needs and led by Africans. Since then, ACF has grown from a small team of 4 to now a 60-person organization. Working across many African countries, ACF has moved from a proof of concept to a real scale and influence. Today, ACF is a trusted partner in the ecosystem, a convener and a leader in the ecosystem, and an important voice in the ecosystem and the whole climate and development nexus. It feels very special that we are meeting on Africa Day. Africa Day is about unity, leadership, and possibilities. It reminds us that Africa's future is full of opportunities. ACF reflects these values strongly. Through its work with African leadership, experts, and agencies, ACF has built a strong partnership with governments, trusted institutions, coalitions across all the different sectors. They have supported systems that create lasting change. At SIF, we know that real transformation is not achieved through financing alone. Change at scale needs trust, long-term partnerships, as I said before, coordination, strong institutions, and collaboration. We see strong alignment between SIF and ACS priorities, including climate resilience, clean growth strategies, jobs for young people, unlocking financing through country platforms, and strengthening African leadership globally. As a partner, we are proud of everything that ACS has built so far, and we know they're going to have greater impact in future. We are proud to see ACF grow its impact, building stronger partnerships across the continent and in the globe, and actually expand its influence across Africa. We remain committed to this partnership for the years ahead. So on behalf of SIF and our partners, philanthropic partners, and the board of ACF, congratulations, Salim, for your leadership and your vision. We are excited about the next chapter ahead, and we know that ACF will continue to deliver great impact on this continent and beyond. Thank you all for joining us on this call, and what a day to celebrate. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Faustina. And thank you to Emmanuel and Faustina for their kind words and for being part of us and continuing the journey with us to 2030. Now we are almost at the Q&A session, but we cannot be there right now because we have a very exciting presentation coming up from Kerry, the head of strategic partnerships and communications, because we have a new website and we have new materials and new socialization strategies. And Kerry will fill you in on all the details on this. Over to you, Kerry.
Thank you, Irene. I'm just going to ask that the presentation is shared. All right, thank you, Irene. Good afternoon and good morning to some of our colleagues joining from other sides of the world. It is incredibly meaningful to gather on Africa Day to showcase not only a new strategy for the ACF, but also the broader evolution of how we present ourselves, communicate our work, and engage with our ecosystem. Over the past few years, ACF has grown significantly as an organization. As the organization evolved, we began asking ourselves important questions. Does our public identity truly reflect who we are becoming? That question became the starting point for a much broader journey that began with a brand audit, evolved into a full brand refresh, led to the redesign of our website, and ultimately became deeply connected to the launch and socialization of our new strategy. And today is really about sharing that journey with all of you. Next slide. In late 2024, we undertook a comprehensive brand audit and reflection process. What emerged from this process was a recognition that while ACF's work and influence had grown significantly, our brand and communications presence had not evolved at the same pace. Transition, Carl. This was not simply about aesthetics. It was about identity, clarity, and alignment. We realized that our external presence was not fully conveying the scale of our ambition and the organization's maturity or the unique role we play within the ecosystem. We also recognized that our brand needed to better reflect who we are at our core, an African-led institution rooted in the realities, opportunities, and complexities of the continent. So the refresh became an opportunity to rethink how we show up in the world. We wanted a brand that felt bolder, clearer, and unmistakably African. a brand that reflected confidence, innovation, and institutional maturity while still feeling grounded in partnerships and transformation. Next transition. The refreshed identity places Africa much more visibly at the center of our visual language and creates stronger consistency across all our communications and collateral. Today, we are showing you the logo, but you will see our brand refresh and corporate identity across all our platforms. And in many ways, the brand refresh became part of the strategy journey and a bridge between who we had been and who we are becoming. Next slide. Once the brand refresh was complete, it became very clear that our website also needed to evolve. Our previous website didn't reflect the organization that we had become, while ACF was doing extraordinary work across the continent. Our digital presence was not effectively telling that story. The user journey and positioning were unclear. Important stories and partnerships and impact were hidden within the platform that no longer reflected our ambition or our maturity. And perhaps most importantly, we realized that the website was not creating the kind of connection we wanted people to have with the organization. So we undertook a complete redesign. And it gives me great pleasure to share with you the new website, Carl, that went live today. And the new website is intended to be much more than a digital platform. It's designed to serve as a gateway to ACF's work, partnerships, thought leadership, and impact. It now more clearly reflects our role within the ecosystem. It creates a more engaging, intuitive experience and aligns much more closely with our evolving organizational strategy and narrative. Today, we're showing you phase 1 of our website, and we'll continue to implement more changes to our website and digital platforms, so watch the space. Next slide, please, Carl. It is increasingly important that the strategy is socialized across the organization. The strategy you've just heard is socialized across the organization and with all our partners in the ecosystem. The strategy is not simply a document. It is a reflection of how ACF has evolved and what we have learned and where we believe the continent, the climate, and the development landscape are heading next. This is why we developed a full suite of strategy materials designed to make the strategy more accessible, engaging, and usable across different audiences and regions. We have produced, We have produced a full strategy document, which will be available on our new website, and summary versions of the strategy. The summary versions, Carl, are available in English and French now, and in the next few days and weeks will be made available in Arabic, Kiswahili, and Portuguese. Accessibility and inclusivity are very important to us throughout this whole process, because Africa's climate future must be shaped through broad participation, dialogue, and ownership across the continent. Over the coming days, weeks, and months, we'll continue expanding these materials through country snapshots, program overviews, storytelling pieces, digital content, and a comprehensive media journey. Ultimately, we want the strategy to live beyond this moment. We want it to become something that is actively used, discussed, and socialized across the ecosystem. Next slide. Today's Africa Day showcase marks the beginning of a much broader process of engagement, dialogue, and partnership around the strategy. Our goal is to create spaces where people can engage with it meaningfully and see themselves reflected within it. Next slide, or next click. We'll host several engagements and convenings beginning with London Climate Action Week. We will celebrate the strategy alongside many of our partners. And importantly, we want these engagements to be deeply rooted on the continent itself. Click through, Carl. Throughout the year, we plan to host strategy conversations and celebrations across Africa, because this strategy and really the broader institutional journey has been shaped collectively through partnership, trust, and collaboration. Thank you. And back to you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Kerry. And as you can all see, everything is brand new, So we have a new website. We have the strategy in 5 different languages, which are all the AU languages. And please go to the website and find your way in there, and please access the resources that are available now in whichever language that suits you. We will now move to the question and answer session, and members of the senior management team are here to answer your questions. If I can just read them out and assign the senior management team member who can answer. So we have a question from Fabian Numbi. Why is ACF not present in the DRC? Considering that the DRC is regarded as a key country and an important source of climate solutions in Africa. And also, how can civil society engage with ACF? I will give this question to Salim to answer.
Yeah,
The next question.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I didn't realize we're going to have a panel, so I had to try to answer some of them. But I'll answer the question for Fabian. I think the Congo, just for the importance of the Congo, it is a very important country that we need to find a way to work in, not only because of the presence of the Congo forest, but also the issues around critical minerals, etc. So we have an angle around critical minerals work, which we working with civil society organizations, in this case, where we are looking to try to support approaches that are positive towards the way in which Congo is able to benefit from critical minerals. At the moment, it's not, we don't have a clear strategy in the Congo. Obviously, we are very interested in talking to partners, and we will evolve this area of work in time. But as I explained in the comments, we don't do anything without a country lead. We have to talk to partners on the ground, and then we have to evolve a strategy that gives us direction in terms of the investments that we have to make. But I would say we did engage Congo. I would not give the reasons for why it was not successful, but we tried. But we had to also move on to other areas across the continent. There is no special reason why we're not involved in Congo. I think it's fair to say I personally love the Congo and hope that we could work in the Congo at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Salim. Ellen, this one is for you. How can civil society organizations engage with ACF? Ellen?
Sorry, just moving the chairs here. You can. Okay.
Sorry, colleagues. Salim and I are sharing a space on two different laptops and not able to navigate the technology. Just to answer the second question around how to engage ACF around grant making, I think that your first port of call is to reach out to country or program leads. So just to give you a bit of a sense of how we grant make, we develop strategies, and Salim had alluded to that for all of our programs and countries. Those are taken to and approved by our board. And then our grant making is very much based on alignment with the strategy. So your first port of call, and we encourage colleagues on the call to please reach out to country and program leads to engage on possible grant making. Thanks, Irene.
Good. Thank you, Ellen. There are requests for the presentation. The webinar recording.
Irene, we can't hear you. Is it because of you? Yeah, the sound.
Irene, we can hear you. Salim, I think it's a problem with your sound.
Oh, okay.
So I was saying there are requests for the presentation. A recording of the webinar is going to be shared in coming days. There's another question here from Raisa Cole. This one is for you, Ellen. How will ACF engage COP31 and COP32 presidency in Ethiopia for concrete funding commitments? Especially what existing decision-making moments, for example, the finalization of the new collective quantified goal on climate finance, the operationalization of the Santiago network for loss and damage, will grant making align to? It's a bit heavy, but I'm sure you can manage.
Sorry about that. Just to answer I've provided some response to Raisa, and I think it's a very important question. I think to be honest, Raisa, we are putting emphasis on COP32 because it's an Africa COP. That's aligned with our other set of investments with Ethiopia because we're investing in investment or country platform work in Ethiopia at the moment. And we feel that this COP has to be very successful because it has to provide the basis and foundation for a lot of work that's already happening, but giving it impetus further as we move African interests and issues at a different scale. As far as the COP31 goes, we have a team that's going to be in Bonn. You're very welcome to write to me and I can put you in touch with them. We do have depth of understanding of the issues. I'm not an expert myself personally, but our team can engage you if you're interested on how we are dealing with some of the issues around COP31 and the follow-up to COP31 to COP32. So those connections will be made. I must say personally, I have a preference to tilt ACF's increasing focus towards implementation. And I only say this in this room. COPs can be very important multilaterally. We need to defend them. We support the presidencies. We support the AGN. And they are one of the places where this increasing shutdown of voices in multilateral systems. So we've got to keep that space open. But we really want to focus on what we are seeing the demand for and the request for is increased implementation of climate solutions and not to spend enormous resources on conversations at the COP, if I may be polite. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salim. There's another question from Bello Yakasani. So the strategy will need a lot of mobilization, especially to government stakeholders. What is our sensitization mobilization approach? Is Ellen going to take that one?
Hi, Irene, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I think Kerry has spoken to it. Today is just the launch, but this is a process that we have engaged partners along the way and will continue to engage partners. We have deep relationships in the countries that we operate in. And I think that importantly, as Kerry had mentioned, the translation into a number of countries is part of the socialization and engagement strategy. So this is really the beginning of engagement and socialization, and certainly not the end of it. Thanks, Irene.
Thank you, Ellen. The next question is, how is this from Philip Kilonze? How is ACF planning on tweaking the implementation of the strategy to the increasingly dynamic geopolitics with implications not only on the transitions, but in funding and repositioning of Africa's development priorities?
So it's a brilliant question and a very difficult question. I think that the world is constantly changing, and we have purposefully tried to develop a strategy that hopefully stands the test of time. I think as an organization, we have, as Salim had mentioned in the comments, we are very fortunate to work with partners across the continent and around the world that are deeply engaged on these issues and can really help guide our thinking on it, as well as a board that is deeply engaged on the implications on the continent. So I think hopefully we have been able to develop a strategy that is adaptable and can be tweaked to changing conditions. And we will draw on our partners, our board, and our team to inform where that's necessary.
And then I'll just take the last one because we are running out of time. And this one, maybe Salim, you can answer. Which strategies is ACF employing or envisioning? It's from Charles Nyambura. Which strategies is ACF employing or envisioning in the implementation of the Addis Ababa African Climate Summit 2 declaration?
Sure. Sorry about that. We're not getting the coordination right here. I think the general approach that ACF has been growing over the last 5 years is really to focus on investment platforms as a way to scale up the level of finance to be able to deliver the outcome. That requires four things. It requires a political support, not just in government, but also outside of government. And we've seen with the Just Energy Transition Partnership in South Africa. It requires building capability inside and outside of government that is implementation focused so that we can bring the best minds and best practitioners to be able to deliver on those projects. Thirdly, we need partners that can invest in initiatives. So this requires working with development finance institutions. So the public finance has to take a lead, and that can be the basis for additional finance from the private sector. And fourthly, we got to generate around these investment platforms engagements with the media, civil society, and other social infrastructure that can monitor, ensure accountability, that social justice is delivered, and that we have the implementation delivers the outcome that it's promised, both on climate and on economic diversification. I just want to answer the question of AI, if you don't mind, Irene. And just to say, highlight that because this is a growing interest that we are requested to play a bigger role at ACF. We are in the exploratory phase of the role for ACF in this space. We are talking to a number of experts and partners. And I think in the coming year, we would have a very clear strategy. But just to give you an indication of that, internally within the organization, we have developed policies and strategies around AI and how to use it. Outside, in terms of the work we're doing, we are also looking at the impact of AI, particularly data centers on environment and climate and water. But we're also looking at the impact of AI in disinformation, in polarization of politics, particularly climate issues. But more importantly, we also want to look at the beneficial use of AI and the governance of that. So I think that's work we have an excellent board member and others who are helping us to figure out what we do in this space. Thanks.
Thank you, Salim. I know there are very many other questions that are still coming in. Please send them to us via our communication channels that you'll find on our brand new website. And at this juncture, let me invite my colleague, Zira Kwage, to do the closing remarks. Zira, over to you.
Thank you very much, Irene. So to wrap up today's strategy showcase, I would like to thank you all for taking the time to join us and to engage with us. Our 2026 to 2030 strategy reflects ACF's continued commitment to supporting climate action in a way that is rooted in Africa's development priorities and also led by African institutions. And as Alan and Batu presented earlier, what has changed is not ACF's mission, it's really how we plan to deliver on it and how we plan to deliver with greater focus, with closer collaboration, and with a strong emphasis on real impact. As we move into this new strategy period, we're excited about the opportunities ahead, and we want to continue learning and engaging with all of you. Your support, your partnership, and collaboration has really helped us shape the work that we do and the growth that we've seen today. And we look forward to building on this together towards a more prosperous and climate resilient continent for all of us. We encourage you to stay connected with us, follow our work and our updates through our new and exciting website. And let's try to continue the conversations that we started today. We don't want it to end at this showcase. And for those that were not able to get in questions or those that we've not been able to respond to, please feel free to contact us through our website. We have we'll have a page where you can reach out to us. I'll just ask that in the subject line you put in virtual strategy showcase, so we know that the request is from this meeting, from this gathering. So thank you all for being here today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.